Welcome back. I hope you got some really good nuggets here. We're actually gonna dive in a little deeper now. I mentioned earlier, I mentioned cerebral cortex, I mentioned the amygdala, I mentioned the brain. So let me give you just like a quick FYI on the brain. So when we look at our brain, when we think about our brain is constantly being bombarded with input, right? Millions of millions of data points that it's being bombarded with. What happens when all these inputs come in? The brain starts putting it through a filter, and that filter looks at things that like what's important to me. What have my past experiences told me about some of these data points, right? So it starts filtering it out and takes all these data points and says, okay, these are the ones that I think are important, and these are the ones that pertain to this particular situation based off of what I know is important to me, based off of my past experiences and my memories that are being stored in my hippocampus and things of that sort. So it starts processing that. So it says, oh, okay. So now that it processes it, it tells you a story, right? Based off of the data points, based off of the filters, it tells your story. That story then dictates what behaviors you exhibit in those situations, right? So it drives your behaviors and your action. So what might that look like if I'm the receiver and you're giving me feedback? So I walk into a room and my brain is scanning the room and saying, is there any threat in this room? In the physical environment of the room, is there anything here that's threatening to me? It could be a color. It could be that I had a bad past experience in this room where I had an altercation with somebody. It could be anything. My brain is scanning. Is there a threat here? My brain is also scanning you coming into the room. How are you looking? How are you feeling? What vibe or energy are you giving me, right? What emotion are you giving me? So my brain is using that also. It's also scanning right now and it's tapping into, again, my hippocampus and my memory banks and saying, okay, what happened the last few times that you and I were in this room together, or that we were on a Zoom call together, or that you said you needed to give me feedback? Was it a positive experience or was it a negative experience? Uh-oh. If the last few times have been a negative experience, chances are this is going to be a negative experience. If you look stressed and anxious, oh, I should be stressed and anxious, because if you're feeling that way, I should be feeling that way. So there's something you know that I don't know. So my brain starts telling me all that and it starts giving me those scenarios. So now I start getting nervous. Now my beta waves are are rising, right? I'm getting anxious, I'm getting stressed. And so I'm going to be on the defensive because now my brain tells me, okay, red flag, ding, 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 alert, 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 you're under threat. And so now I'm going to go into self-protection mode and I'm going to be so focused on being on guard that I'm not going to hear everything that you want me to hear. So that's a possibility of what could happen. So when we talk about what we do leading up to the feedback conversation, what we do during the feedback conversation, it's about being intentional about everything from the room in which you choose to have that session, the background you use on your Zoom, the color of the clothes that you wear, the tone that you take, everything, so that you signal to that other person's brain that, hey, it's okay. No need to go into self-protection mode. This is a safe space here. Let's dive into what that looks like. So what are some suggestions or tips that you can take when you're preparing for a feedback session? And again, this is just some tips. Sure, if you think back to the past, there's some things that you have done, actions that you've taken that have been very effective. Use those. But what are some other ones? So when you're talking about preparing for the feedback session, your mindset is super critical. Again, our brains sync up with other people when we're in the same space, right? So if you're thinking this is a stressful, non-ideal situation, you could transmit that energy to the other person. So changing your mindset from, oh, this person isn't going to want to hear this feedback, especially if it's constructive, high complexity feedback, to no, you know what? They want to succeed and I want them to succeed. And so they're going to welcome that feedback. And actually, there have been some studies that have shown that more often than not, people want the feedback, not that they don't want it. So just keep that in mind, okay? So changing the narrative that you tell yourself, right, that your brain is telling you, to something more positive so that you come in with the right mindset. Understanding the context of the situation. Who is the individual? What motivates them? What doesn't motivate them? What is all the circumstances? Do you have all the data points for the situation? What's going on? What may have been going on that impacted the behavior, whether it was ideal behavior or non-ideal behavior? So understanding all of the circumstances around there, because there may be pieces of the puzzle that you don't have. So go in understanding that you may be missing some pieces of the puzzle. So that feedback session is also an exploration session. Be clear on your desired outcome. Like, what do you want to get? What is the change that you want to see? Is it you want them to do more of a particular behavior that was really good? Or is it you want them to shift their behavior or tweak their behavior or transform their behavior? What do you want? What's the outcome that you want? And what are your intentions? Because you have to align your intention. Are your intentions really to go in there and help that person get better? You have to be clear on that because that impacts how you deliver your message. Gather all your relevant data points, understand the receiver. Are they, we talked about the readiness, right? Are they open to feedback? Are they not open to feedback? Is there a lot going on in their life? Is it true that they are overwhelmed and that's maybe why they were under trigger? What's important to them? Is financial stability important to them? Is altruism important to them? Like, what do they value? Understanding that and flexing when you're there in the situation, like having the ability to flex based off of the input that they're giving you, both verbal, nonverbal, direct, and indirect input that they're giving you. Select a neutral, comfortable environment. If it's a conference room, maybe a conference room with a nice little plant, with colored walls that aren't so harsh, right? With a nice casual environment. If it's a Zoom call or a virtual call, maybe have a nice background with some nice blue hues or whatnot. Dress in more common colors. Red is probably not an ideal color to dress in when you're if you have to give constructive feedback. Check your emotions at the door. You have to at one point say, how am I feeling right now? Listen to your body. What are you physically feeling? What are you emotionally feeling? What are you feeling? And then calm yourself down if you need to calm yourself down. And some ways to do that is do a quick 3-minute meditation or a breathing exercise. There's plenty in all of those music apps. You can look up meditation. You can find a quick meditation exercise for 1 to 3 minutes. Do something like that. Meditation and breathing exercises help to increase your alpha waves and decrease your beta waves, all right? And you want those alpha waves higher because that means you're in a more relaxed state. And that means you have less stress and less anxiety. And that's the energy you want to bring into the room, right? So let's talk about being in the room. So when you're in the room, watch your tone, your movements, and things like that. If you're saying, yes, I believe in you and everything you can do, you're delivering a mixed message to the receiver, right? So you want to make sure that your movements and your tone match the words that you're saying and what you're trying to communicate to the receiver. Can't stress it enough. Be aware of your emotions, be aware of their emotions, and then adjust and flex how you need to, right? If you feel yourself getting overly stressed or emotional or fearful or whatnot, take a slight deep breath so that you can relax yourself again. If you feel that they're getting emotional, it's okay to do pause. Silence is okay for a little bit to give them time to process it. Practice active listening. I really focus on what it is that they're saying versus what it is that you're going to say counter to what it is that they're saying. Give them the time to express themselves. As long as they're respectful, if they need to get their emotions out there, let them get it out there. The conversation could trigger their emotional center, right? Could trigger their amygdala. If their amygdala hijacks their brain, then they're not going to be able to process what you're saying. So sometimes we just need to get it out of our mind, say how we're feeling in a respectful manner so that our cognitive center of our brain can take over and we can be more open and receptive to the feedback that we're getting. As I mentioned before, know when it's time, and you may need to hit pause if things get too emotionally charged. Hit pause and schedule a follow up to give them time to process it. And lastly, remember emotions are contagious. So, how they're feeling could impact you. So, you need to be aware of that, and how you're feeling can impact them. And you need to be aware of that so that you can manage that in the situation. So, after the feedback session, reflection is critical. We talk about reflection being good for the receiver, but reflection is good for you too as the giver. Like, what went well during that feedback session? What could have gone better? What would you continue doing and do the same in future sessions? What might you tweak or do differently in a future session because maybe it didn't land as well? Remembering that each feedback session is going to be different based off of the individual. And think about also, how do I help this person on their journey? They got a new piece of information that may require them to exhibit and practice new skills and behaviors. That's a scary thing. So, how are you going to support them on that journey? And then, lastly, I've been doing a lot of research lately on inclusive leadership, and it aligns really well with this concept of just increasing a feeling of belongingness, inclusion, feeling heard, like you have voice, like you're valued. Those are critical components to have in a relationship with someone else or a partnership with someone else so that they're more open to feedback. So I say that because I encourage you on an ongoing basis to be an inclusive leader, take actions of an inclusive leader, which includes continuously working on building a bond and a connection with other individuals, strengthening the trust in your relationship with other individuals. If the trust is broken, sit down and have a conversation about how can we rebuild this trust. Establish yourself as part of their tribe or their in-group. Ensure that they are clear that you're all working towards the same goal and that you're vested in their success. Take steps to create psychological safety. What does that look like? If someone does come to you to give you feedback, how you react lets them know whether or not that's a safe space for them to work. Be open to receive feedback yourself, and that in turn will make them feel open to receive your feedback. When they do make a mistake, don't come down on them hard. Take that as a coaching opportunity, as a learning opportunity for them to get better. So you want to create that space where they feel comfortable being their authentic self and coming to you when they're not sure if they know what to do, because they know you're going to be able to guide them, that you'll still be able to give them feedback, but feedback with good intentions, and that you're not, for lack of a better word, going to jump down their throat when something goes wrong. Working on and being cognizant of your leadership brand and reputation. If you're known as a person that's going to fly off the handle, the person that's going to beat people down, the person that only cares about delivering on a number and not on the people on your team, that's going to impact other people's ability to take feedback. Embrace and enhance your emotional intelligence. The more you lean in on building your self-awareness, building your emotional regulation, building your social awareness. So understanding others and how others are feeling, and adjusting your style and what you're saying, your behaviors to be more palatable and impactful for the other individuals. The more you'll increase the partnership with them, the more their brain will say, oh, okay, they're a member of my tribe. I want to put in that discretionary effort, right? We're all striving towards the same thing. I know that they have my best interest in mind. I'm going to be more open to hear what they have to say and to take their feedback and improve. And I want the whole team to win. I want the whole organization to win. Embracing failing forward, right? I talked about it slightly earlier. If someone fails, think about it as failing forward. It's a learning opportunity. It's a coaching opportunity. Let's discuss it. Let's talk about what we might do differently in the future. It's about having them learn from it so that they don't repeat the same mistakes in the future. And then lastly, it's about, people come to you with what seems like a very different idea or point of view. Listen to them. There isn't one way of doing almost anything. There's multiple ways of doing it and still getting to the same ultimate goal. And guess what? If that person gives you some of their perspective and you give them some of your perspective, chances are that the final output is going to be so much better than if you created that output on your own. Let's talk about action. So we've had a lot of content in this video. Now it's time to really begin building your action plan. I'd like you to think about what's one or two actions that you can take as soon as you're done watching this video, so within the next week, to help improve your efficiency in giving feedback. So go ahead and hit pause on the video and capture the one or two action items. Welcome back. Hopefully you have some very specific action items that you'll take after you finish watching this video. So what's one more to do that I want to add to your list is an accountability partners. Research shows, data shows that if you have an accountability partner, the probability that you'll actually accomplish your goals grows exponentially. So find someone in your personal or professional life that you feel comfortable sharing your action items with. Reach out to them, share with them the journey that you want to take in terms of continuing to enhance your proficiency in giving feedback. Ask them for feedback. Hey, here's what I learned. Here are my action items. Here's someone I might want to give feedback to on the approach I'm thinking I'm going to have with them. What do you think about it? You challenge and build, and then align on a 30-day action plan. So you want to say, okay, we're going to meet in 30 days, and here's what I commit to do in 30 days. And that person's going to hold you accountable for that. Schedule the time on the calendar. Do not miss that schedule and see how far you get. So that's our video for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned for more videos in the future, touching base on different competencies or areas that we feel will be value added to you and your professional journey. If you want to learn more about our future offerings, feel free to reach out to us at info@thejenpinto.com or visit our website or any of our social media sites.